Everything that the audit revealed was presented by Mr. Kastner during the public meeting. I don't believe that was one of his statements.
Why place him on the superintendent on administrative leave, given that he has such short time with the district left?
The superintendent is held to the same standard as any other employee of this district. If a conflict of interest appears, the actions taken should be the same, regardless. He does have a small amount of time. That doesn't mean that we just ignore, the possible conflict of interest and allow him to remain in the position. We wouldn't do that with anybody else. It's no different.
And why were you the only one to abstain from the vote last night?
I abstained due to a pending grievance.
Can you tell us more about that grievance when it was filed?
I cannot.
My question is how the installation of the DEA conservator will affect the search for a new superintendent.
It's my understanding that the board will continue to operate as it does. So when the DEA conservator or conservators come to the district, we will continue to operate as we would, which means initiate the superintendent search and go through, take all steps necessary to identify and hire a new superintendent.
After the findings of the DEA investigation, what new policies and procedures will be put into place?
We have yet to receive, I'm sorry, let me start again. Will you repeat your question?
So after the findings of the DEA investigation, what new policies and procedures will be put into place?
We understand the findings in the TEA report. We need to develop action plans to ensure what exactly that is. I can't tell you, where the board functions in a governance role. Administration is the one that ensures that our practices, policies, procedures are on the line with what's required by TEA and any other regulatory agency. So we'll review the report, administration will bring recommendations, and whatever's necessary to ensure that we're being compliant, that's exactly what we'll do. Of course, it's all in the interest of making sure that we're serving our students, our staff, and the community to the best of our ability.
How are you all handling the follow-up from parents and teachers? Will they be attempting to stay informed and be involved?
By being upfront. We're not, we requested that TEA release the report publicly. We made sure that the Weaver audit results were presented, again, openly and publicly. And the actions that we've taken are also in public. I'm here to restore, to instill, to expand upon the trust that the community places in us. And by continuing to be available to address questions, that do come from the community. We're not hiding from it. Everything has been made public, and the actions that we're taking as a response to remedy the situation, to eliminate the gaps that have occurred, it's all being done in the open.
How long will Dr. Carmen be placed on paid leave?
Well, the investigation or the review of the facts, I can't tell you how long that's going to take. What I can tell you is that his resignation is effective June 30th.
Does the ADM group currently have open contracts with SISD, and will they be reevaluated?
I can't tell you off the top of my head whether they do or they don't, but I'm sure an information request would be able to reveal that.
Does SISD plan to seek a bond issue in the next 2 years?
Good question. Hold on. I can say that there are no plans at this particular moment to initiate or to initiate a bond float.
Given the conflict of interest with the superintendent, would it not just be easier to cut ties with him now versus waiting for the June 30th date?
The contract law in the state of Texas ensures that certified employees are guaranteed certain avenues, including appeals, to take any action that is either inconsistent or inappropriate without knowing the results of a more thorough investigation. would expose the district, to great risk and maybe even lawsuits. We're taking the actions that are consistent, and within what is required and allowed by Texas law.
What is your response to yesterday? There was talk of some ex-employees' perception of favoritism in the district as well as fear of retaliation. How the district addressed that?
I believe, while I can't speak specifically for the entire board, what I can say is that my approach to that would be to initiate a climate survey. Again, we're not shying away from the deficiencies, because fear of retaliation, low morale, those can be considered deficiencies as well. So I believe that would be the steps to take. Take a culture survey and reveal exactly, where the deficiencies are and try to remedy them.
Perfect. And can you tell us a little bit about what comes next? I know yesterday they recommended you speak to legal counsel. Have you guys already done so? And is there any recommendations that they've already given?
Speak to legal counsel about?
About yesterday's findings with Dr. Carmen. I know they mentioned that was the recommendation they gave.
I believe there was a very specific question that was directed towards legal counsel. However, the recommendations that resulted from the Weaver audit came towards the very end of the report. We recognize that those recommendations were made with the intent to remedy the areas that where there's some risk, some exposure. And so towards the end of the meeting or during the meeting, I believe y'all saw that our direction was to initiate an action plan to adopt those recommendations as appropriate through any policy or procedure necessary.
Why is this news of this audit and the results coming to light now?
Because that's when Weaver finished their audit.
Do you know when we'll be able to see the full audit report?
All I can say is soon. The audit report is the work summary of Weaver and Tidwell. Just as soon as they issue the final report, just like the final TA report or any other, it will be available.
Did you yourself?
The presentation, however, though, which is my understanding, is a complete summary of the report that was presented in its entirety during the board meeting.
Did you or any other board members have concerns with procurement practices?
I can't speak for other board members. I think it's always good housekeeping to ensure that regardless of whether you have concerns or not, it's just a good practice to review your policies and make sure that they're compliant. The audit was initiated to make sure that we are compliant, and we had findings.
So, why did you vote to change the policies to make Dr. Carmen the head of the admin review committee?
It was at his request.
Did you ask him why he wanted to have that role?
I can't recall. It's been a while, but I can tell you it was at his request.
As a trustee, did you have any concerns about procurement when it came to having your CEO as part of that process?
I think at the time, no. If you don't trust, the leader of the organization, then maybe they shouldn't be the leader of the organization.
Or maybe just outside of, other governmental agencies, they typically have their committee and then it transfers over to the executive officer.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts that he was going to help streamline things?
Again, it was made at his request. The procurement committee is not a single individual. We have a very well documented procurement process. And so you trust in the process, but then you do have an audit to verify. If there are weaknesses, they'll be identified and then you remedy them.
Part of last night's presentation, there was some discussion about board members going to a conference with Mr. Carmen and with ADM Group. You know who that was? Were you part of that? And did you all have any understanding that there was this kind of relationship between the superintendent with ADM?
I was not at that conference. The report did not identify who that was, but there are continuing education is a standard requirement, and some of the ways, one of the avenues in order to meet the continuing education requirements are national conferences. That's where the presentations are made so that you can meet exactly what those requirements are. Of course, if you've gone to any conference, I'm sure there's media conferences too. When you do attend those conferences, there's not only other counterparts, from school boards across the state, across the nation, but also vendors. So it would not surprise me that ADM was there. It wouldn't surprise me that there were many other vendors there.
In terms of accountability, I believe I heard Mr. Kasner say that everybody on that review committee was supposed to sign a conflict of interest form. And have you all seen any production from those kinds of documents? Did Mr. Carmen disclose any relationships on that document?
Having heard the presentation last night, I know about as much as what you do, but if that's our standard practice, I would say that the forms are there.
In terms of accountability, if they weren't listed, how will you, is there any form of accountability that can be had?
Absolutely, there's accountability. You saw exactly what the accountability was. There was, a finding of a conflict of interest, and the person who was subject of that finding was placed on administrative leave.
Speaking of conflict of interest, the TEA's audit report mentioned that Trustee Guerra was also involved in a conflict of interest situation. Is there going to be any reprimands for him?
I cannot say.
Do you have plans on resigning from the Board of Trustees?
I do not.
Have you heard of any other board members planning to do so?
I have not heard.
Back to the issue of Mr. Guerra, are there protocols to accountability with a trustee in these kinds of situations? Are there any processes to thoroughly investigate what the TEA's findings were?
I believe that question goes to TEA.
So you all are going to allow TEA to fully and thoroughly investigate those claims?
Well, TEA is the regulatory body. The report has been published, and the findings are contained within the report. It's up to, I can't speak for TEA.
So as board president, are you saying that the Board of Trustees, at least at SISD, won't be trying to thoroughly investigate it themselves or hold Mr. Guerra accountable for whatever allegations were found in that report?
The Board of Trustees does not have that type of authority.
You won't censure. There's no thought of censorship or a letter of reprimand or notification.
Again, that's up to TEA.
Who requested the Weaver Company to do this audit?
That was an action taken by the board.
And can you just expand on why why the board felt that was necessary?
I already have. It's a good business practice. We have financial audits that are required every year. It's standard to any public organization, whether it be a government agency or a corporation. Audits are standard practice in financial areas. So again, it's just good housekeeping to make sure that your processes, your policies are evaluated by an independent third party. And if there are findings, that you take action to remedy them.
Can you talk about any of the services that the district will no longer provide due to the deficit? I heard special education may be cut down or cut back.
There were no recommendations during yesterday's presentation, to my recollection, that involved cutting of services.
Do you have any message to the community who may be watching and maybe doesn't have as much trust in SISD leadership anymore?
I would say that there should be more trust, because even TEA noted that we were the ones who chose to release the report. I don't know if that was necessary, but we felt it was necessary. We're not trying to hide anything. We're trying to make sure that we are as transparent as possible, that the information that we release and that any deficiencies that are identified are made public, and then to allow us the opportunity to remedy there's deficiencies that are identified. Anything short of that, I would say there should be a lack of trust, but we're, taking the right actions and making sure that the information is available, and then they can see exactly, the actions that are being taken.
In terms of procurement and the audit's recommendations, what are your thoughts on terms of expanding or minimizing the amount allowable for your administration or the administration to go and secure contracts with contractors? I mean, in terms of the $100,000 limit.
That's certainly something that will be reviewed as a result of the audit. I do believe that dollar amount is pretty standard across any school district. It doesn't mean that it's ideal. So again, that's certainly something that we're going to review.
I know that there were some concerns back in 2022 at San Benito over some of Dr. Carmen's administration. I mean, were you all ever alerted to any of those issues in terms of procurement as well?
I think we saw the and I'm trying to remember what I saw. I saw the news story, same thing as everybody else did. Dr. Carmen was already employed here at the time, and there were, that I can recall, there were no punitive or punitive isn't the right word. There weren't any either criminal or even other consequences imposed by San Benito. That's all I can say.
Can you, so what, and I apologize, I know I'm going up and down in terms of time frame, but I know that for a good number of the trustees on the board right now, a lot of them were elected, with campaign promises that they'd bring stability and accountability to the district after some time, and there was efforts to replace Dr. Espinosa. Now looking at things in hindsight, I mean, do you have a message to the public in terms of how things have played out these last couple of years, and what is your vision, for these next couple of years?
I wasn't on the board at the time that Dr. Espinosa was replaced, so I can't speak to that. What I can say is that my message is the same one that I've been, given since we started. It's the same one that I've given since I was elected to the board. It's the same one that I will continue to give the board. I'm committed, to making sure that we provide the environment, that we are, fiscally responsible, and that we deliver the type of education that our students, that our parents, that our employees, that our community deserves, and to do so in the most transparent way possible.
And I apologize if you've answered this question already.
We have about time for one more question, and then we got to move on to Spanish.
When do you expect for a conservator to come in and start overseeing operations here?
The timeline is up to TEA.
They haven't told you anything?
No, sir.
Just lastly, real quick, what is your hope for the future after all of this?
To return to the district of choice, to return to a time where the focus is not on the shortcomings that we've had procedurally, operational in the district, but rather to the successes that our students and our educators and the district as a whole have. If you look throughout the district, you see, the results of their efforts, you see many awards, etc. My hope is that we return to that, and that when you all come here, it's that we're focusing on, not, the shortcomings that we're trying to remedy right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We'll do Spanish real quick. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna fist bump me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Unless you don't care, there's